Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Sunday Vibes. I am your host, Zachary Rees-Jalab. You're welcome. I am here. And I'm joined by Patrick Manstrata and Christopher Hamill. How are you doing, fellas?
Good.
Really good. I'm ecstatic.
Why are you suffering so badly? What happened to you last night?
No, I fell asleep in the taxi on the way here and I woke up really groggy and irritable.
I fell asleep for about 10 seconds and just woke up. No, in the taxi as well. And I woke up absolutely terrified. You know, just when you're just like, you know, like, and we'd got about 100 feet up the road.
I got the training.
That's a wise decision.
I much prefer it now. When I'm not having to carry all the stuff, I much prefer it. Because that's how we still do it at Football Daily. We bring our own equipment. But guys, this is Sunday Vibes. And also, when you're watching it, it is the beginning of the World Cup. The World Cup 2022 in Qatar. A huge occasion. The football comes together. Everyone loves it. And so we're going to be talking about players to watch at this year's competition. So let's get into it. Any names that are coming off the dome straight away, Hamill?
Well, I put out a tweet and Pat harvested said tweet for some suggestions and we comprised a shortlist. Although we were sent 120 entries. We went for some of the less obvious ones where we feel we can provide a bit of value. And our first man is Jesper Lindstrom. And I was watching highlights of him last night and this morning. And what I want to say is, shades of Mason Mount with Kai Havertz's Samata type.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's an interesting build.
Expert at taking it on the half turn. Had a look at his numbers. Doesn't contribute massively to build-up play. But what this guy does do very well is drive with the ball. He's great at cutting in off the flank. And he's been a real goal scorer, a real goal getter for Eintracht Frankfurt this season. Now, obviously, he plays for the team many people have christened dark horses in Denmark. And we all think they should have a decent shot at going deep, right? Particularly given how impressive they were in qualification. They beat
Euros.
France twice as well. And we think Lindstrom, despite not featuring loads throughout qualification, might see some minutes because of the fact they don't really have a real focus point or a really good striker. Maybe that is harsh to the likes of Cornelius, Braithwaite, Dolberg. I don't mind Dolberg.
But I put Lindstrom in a scout report about players who could get moves after the World Cup, and I looked at Braithwaite and Cornelius together, and I think they've got 109 caps between them and 19 international goals. And Dolberg has played like 200 minutes this season for Sevilla. And like Chris says, you know, Lindstrom this year has really kind of moved on from his attacking midfield role, and he's looking much more like a striker, more touches in the box, fewer passes, more shots. He's got 6 goals already. Last season he got 5 in the whole year. So you're seeing a guy who looks like he's turning into a striker at exactly the time that a team really well built otherwise has a vacancy at striker.
Well, that team as well, considering the players that are all around it, have so much creativity behind that striker. They do just need that one guy to come in there and score goals. And we saw it in the Euros, obviously, how fantastic they were going.
And they've kind of carried on from that, really,
Yeah.
throughout qualification, in the Nations League as well. Actually, I can't recall their form all that much, but they're still playing that 3-4-3. Their goal getters, goal grabbers in qualification were Skov Olsen and Joachim Mele from that wing-back position. They both got 5, which was really impressive. But it is interesting that a lot of their young talent are kind of excelling at international level, or look really impressive at international level, but that's not necessarily translated to club form, at least in the past.
Are you thinking of Damsgaard?
I'm thinking of, Lindstrom aside, I'm thinking of like Skov Olsen's taken a little while to get going. He's now shining at Club Bruges after a slow start at Bologna. Jonas Wind, good sort of 6 months at Wolfsburg last season. I don't know if he's been injured, but he's not really been in the starting 11 this campaign. Damsgaard, Brentford, only 1 start in the Premier League. Like,
rough.
Which is crazy, given, you know, like after the Euros, there was such a clamour about Damsgaard.
Yeah, he did. His club form fell off a little bit afterwards as well. I mean, I remember that we were kind of being like, this is a guy that looks so exciting. His shot numbers are ridiculous. And yeah, I think he's just not quite worked out with
Well,
Thomas
he struggled
Frank
for fitness, didn't he, at Samp?
Injuries.
And
He's still really young.
he is still really young, and he's an effective substitute because he, does press an awful lot. He's very mobile, very techie, very tactically versatile. So I'm excited to see him as well. But yeah, looking at their team, big fan of that 3-4-3. I don't know what's happened to Poulsen. Youssef.
Yeah, that's a good point actually. But that midfield, you're like, what? Højbjerg, Billing, who has actually been a crazy goal.
He's basically playing 10.
Eriksen, it's really
team.
solid.
It really is. And again, I think you mentioned them as dark horses. I think they definitely are a team that can go far. A player that I want to touch upon, and I also think we should probably add a couple of names along with him, is Aurelien Tchouameni for the French squad. Obviously, with no N'Golo Kante, with no Paul Pogba, he's a guy who could be basically playing in that midfield with Camavinga as well, quite possibly. But I kind of think there are a couple other names that should be added alongside Tchouameni who are players that I think are quite well known for our fan base and for us who are kind of avid football watchers, working football, but actually maybe to the casual fan.
I agree.
Aren't out there,
well
aren't
known.
Big names. And I would also put, say, Pedri on that list and Bellingham as well. Those kind of youngsters that are probably going to be starting for their international side.
You're talking about the dads of Football Daily, like Pedri, who's here?
Exactly. Yeah,
well,
exactly.
you know what it's like when like people, if you do watch a game in a pub, people are just like, oh, who's this then? And you're like, I don't know, you like won the league last season with Inter Milan or something.
League,
They're like,
young player of the tournament.
Oh, I've never heard of him. And the World Cup. The point of the World Cup, I guess, is to pull in those casual viewers.
100%.
There are going to be a lot of people who are like, where is N'Golo Kante? Where is Paul Pogba?
Should we talk about Tchouameni a little bit then?
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Should we open up on him? Because you did just highlight a very prevalent point there in that France are kind of rebuilding their midfield on the fly. And Patrice, I saw that in the Nations League, they were playing a lot of 3-4-3, which I don't really associate with France or Didier Deschamps, even though Deschamps, conservative, boring, so it does make sense.
You have such a hate for Deschamps.
Well, and also when you think about it, at the last World Cup, they had a back line that was basically all centre backs, right? They had Pavard playing right back, they had Lucas Hernandez playing left back, and at that point he could have brought someone like Theo Hernandez in, but it seemed like he didn't really trust him to play as a proper fullback. Same for Ferland Mendy. So maybe it is just an issue of trust. He thinks, well, if I'm going to put these guys in the team, I'm still not really sure about them defensively, so I can deploy them as wing backs, and that also allows him to get some more talent in the back. And if you're losing Tchouameni is amazing, Camavinga is amazing, but if you're losing a once every decade star like N'Golo Kante, maybe once every 2 or 3 decade star like N'Golo Kante, then it does make sense to say we will sacrifice an attacker to get an extra defender on the pitch, and we'll rely on the fact that, to be honest, Benzema, Mbappe, this should be sufficient, to produce. Even Griezmann, I still wouldn't start Griezmann, but I know he's been playing well for Atletico Madrid, but
they had Nkunku as well, obviously, just before he got injured in training.
Who I think would have been a more interesting candidate maybe to start in this position, but they'll be absolutely fine personnel-wise. I think we can all agree on that. The question is, what's the atmosphere going to be like? Because actually, for all that he's criticised for his kind of quote-unquote antics off the pitch, Pogba was a super unifying figure for France at the last World Cup. He really led the team. You saw him pull them together in the dressing room. Without him, without Kante, you start to look at it and you're like, okay, Benzema's come back into this team after a long period out. Is he suddenly the guy who's pulling everybody forward? Is it Griezmann? Is it Varane now, who doesn't necessarily seem the type? Is Lloris going to start? I don't even know.
I think Lloris probably will. And also, you mentioned Varane. He might not be featuring in that first game. There are quite a few players they're going to be missing from that 2018 World Cup campaign, which obviously they won. And if your midfield is now a Camavinga and Tchouameni, fantastic, and definitely for the future, brilliant. But there's not really a lot of experience for guys that have been there and done that, like you would have had with Pogba, like you would have had with Kante. It would have been amazing to kind of have one of those two available to then kind of have the next one.
I mean,
to have a Camavinga or
the
Tchouameni
Nations
next to
League,
them.
they're also playing like Boubacar Kamara, Fofana, and that might have been him just using that tournament to be a little bit experimental. Could quite easily revert to a back four. Did play that as well when the tournament starts. But yeah, should we kind of just break down Tchouameni and why we think he's so special then? Because here is a guy that I think we expected to be slowly bedded into the Real Madrid side. Maybe Camavinga would become more prominent before him by virtue of being there sooner. But it's kind of been the other way around, right? This season, like, Tchouameni has been the anchor in midfield for Carlo Ancelotti as the campaign has slowly progressed. I mean, only 4 outfield players have played more minutes than him this season. He leads the team for defensive actions on 4.8 per 90, and he's in the top 2% of midfielders across the last year. for tackles, which is super impressive when you consider Real Madrid have almost 60% of the ball in any given game on a domestic front. But yeah, not just like this defensive behemoth, is he? Either, Pat. Like, he's been really good at progressing the play.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's in the top 1 or 2% as well for progressive passes, balls into the final third. Certainly at the club, I mean, he's only 4th, I think, for passes into the final third. But the guys ahead of him are Modric, Kroos, and Camavinga. So he's obviously playing the most reserved role there. I think the reason he's gone straight into the lineup is because of that sale of Casemiro. If Casemiro had stayed, then I would have expected to see a lot less of Tchouameni this season. But
I have to correct myself. Top 2% for interceptions, only top 24% for tackles. I'm so sorry for everyone at home.
Still outrageous.
I know, amateur.
You will be struck off. Yeah, so I don't know. It's an interesting vision of what Real Madrid could be in the future, because obviously in the past, and this is going to sound like a criticism, but basically Casemiro was in the team to break up play, and then he'd give it to Kroos, and Kroos would pass it forward. Well, Tchouameni can pass it forward, maybe not as well as Kroos, and maybe he doesn't defend quite as well as Casemiro, but the fact that he can do both of those jobs to a pretty high level at the same time is a really interesting thing for Real Madrid, because it means that they can, in the long run, presumably, deploy Valverde and Camavinga either side of him. And then you look at that midfield and you think, wow, well, there was a stage where we were really worried about what the next generation of Real Madrid's midfield looked like, and now I'm not concerned about it at all. So it'll be interesting. I mean, it's good that he's been playing lots of minutes in an extremely demanding environment before this tournament, because I think otherwise he could potentially be quite shocked.
No, that's a good point.
You know, if he were coming out of Monaco straight into like a starting berth for the reigning champions at the World Cup, I mean, trying to fill Conte's shoes, that would be scary.
French fans as well are brutal. They will let you know if you've had a bad game.
And there's other talent as well, you know, like there's and Camara, if he'd been fit, there's Enzo Lefebvre, there's Maxence Caqueret. Like, there are so many people pushing to get into Caqueret. This. Yeah, Caqueret, I think, is maybe my favourite young talent in France. Like, there are all these guys who are pushing for places in the team, so you really have to assert yourself when you get the chance. Well, I think he can definitely do it, but the question is, what? I actually think France. I was going to say they're the hardest team to predict, but I don't know if that's actually true, because I equally find Germany hard to predict, and Belgium hard to predict, and England hard to predict.
There's a few big teams that took some licks at the last tournament, right? And you just don't know how they're going to bounce back. And one thing that you noted down in the research as well that really impresses me about Tchouameni is his ability to sort of evade pressure as well, which you don't really associate with guys that put up huge defensive numbers, right? He is nimble. He's completing over one dribble a game, and I think that's better than Modric.
Yeah, it is.
So he's good at bypassing that pressure as well. He is a really just well-rounded modern midfielder. You know, everything you'd want in someone that you were starting to build a side around. So yeah, I think he could have a hell of a tournament. I
just want to touch upon, I know I spoke about him earlier. You mentioned England, and I think Doogie said this, and over the past couple of days, I've actually come a lot more closer to agreeing and thinking and taking this as my opinion.
Chips away at you.
Well, he said that Jude Bellingham may be England's most important player.
Okay.
And the more I think about it, the more I kind of agree, because obviously for Jude, we mentioned obviously the issues that Tchouameni might face with the pressure, and it's going to be the same for Jude Bellingham, especially with how well obviously England did going into the Euros. But this is a guy where, when we talk about England's play at the Euros last year, a lot of it was conservative. 3 at the back, playing 2 holding midfielders, Declan Rice and Calvin Phillips. And the one thing that potentially replacing, which you assume he will do after how he played it, and the fact that Cam Phillips has only played 1 game and not had many minutes this season, is that Jude Bellingham will replace him in midfield if he plays this 3 at the back or 4 at the back, whatever it might be. But Jude Bellingham being there, full stop, just gives you a more attacking player, someone that wants to go forward, someone that can kind of connect the attack to the defence. And that's not to say that Declan Rice or Calvin Phillips weren't that great at it. In fact, actually, I think one of the biggest surprises was that Phillips was pretty good for it, playing for England last at the Euros. But with Bellingham, like, this is a guy who this season has come on so much, and apart from people at home really having maybe watched him against Manchester City in the Champions League, I don't think they would have seen many games. Now, I'm not sitting here saying I've watched Bellingham play 1,090 minutes for Dortmund this season, but one of the things he has definitely improved on is his goal scoring. He's getting 4 goals in his opening 4 Champions League matches. And so if he can do that for this England squad, like one of my biggest worries for England, they're going to be a bit boring again. They're going to be not necessarily fun to watch. And with Jude Bellingham in that side, my kind of worries feel like they're at ease. I don't know how you're feeling.
You've got to be a very special player to demote Declan Rice to the role of the guy that protects the defence, right? And that is what might happen in various systems. Maybe if he plays a 4-2-3-1, if he does go with 3 at the back, maybe less so. But even then, you'd expect Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham to be a bit more inhibited and the creativity to come down the flanks. I would love to see him go with a 4. We covered this pretty extensively on Team Talk. Go and watch that if you haven't already. We had James Alcott and Rory Jennings on arguing about their best England 11s. But yeah, he's a very special talent. I think there's, unlike Tchouameni, obviously his speciality isn't hoovering up everything in front of the defence. Yeah, it's connecting midfield to attack, well, particularly this season. But he is a guy that can do it all, and that does excite me. Would you agree that he's England's shining light, or do you want to bring someone else to the fore?
Foden could have a big tournament. That's another one that I've heard a few times.
It's kind of about time.
Yeah.
Doesn't actually start in my England team, but
Bellingham, I do think is pivotal, but I don't think that's necessarily because he's like the best player or anything. Yeah. It's just you're losing a lot of defensive solidity from that team with Phillips going out, and especially Kyle Walker. The loss of those 2 players is a big deal for you.
First game anyway, yeah. I think Kyle's going to come back after a couple of games.
Okay, well, if he comes back at some point, that will really, really help. But certainly in attack, I think that Bellingham getting forward could help you break teams open where previously the team's been too positionally conservative to do that. The question is, does he have the defensive discipline to do the tracking back that needs to be done? Now, I think Southgate could cope with that in all sorts of ways. If he deploys Ben White on the right of a back 3, for example, Ben White steps into midfield quite a lot for Arsenal. He could try something like that. Obviously, Trippier and Alexander-Arnold are both players who have a lot of the skill sets of midfielders, so they could do something like that too. I mean, there are all sorts of ways to cope with it, but I don't really know. I kind of struggle to think how I would line up the attack, actually, and I do think that Mount probably doesn't deserve to start based on how he's played in this half season. But the loss of Mount, I also think, is a really big deal for the team defensively if you don't play him. So I have all sorts of concerns, and you've just got to kind of pick a solution and then commit to it, but I'm not really sure which one Southgate will go for.
His last couple of games, he was trialling 4 at the back, and to be quite honest, the partnership as well of Rice and Bellingham wasn't working until the Germany game.
If we can't impose ourselves on the teams
the first 3 games, goodness,
with 4 at the back and find 100% a formula that we're comfortable with, then that is really problematic.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, if we start with a 3 at the back in the group against Iran, I'll shoot myself.
But I think they will. And I mean, that said, I don't know. I do get a bit concerned that I think there are a lot of England fans I can't tell if the fans we talk to are like the average fan. Yeah. So I've heard quite a lot of negativity about England, in our office, or people having concerns. But I wonder if the average fan thinks they got to the final of the Euros, they got to the semis of the World Cup, they're going to be great. And, I look at this group, I don't really follow football, but I look at this group and I think like Wales, Iran, USA, it would be easy. Well, I think the USA are pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
So I don't know. If England fans are going into this expecting to have like a really great kind of like ride into the round of 16 where everything works seamlessly, I think they could get quite a rude awakening. But yeah, I have no idea what it's going to be like. It's an interesting question because I think previously with Southgate, where he really shone was getting the team to kind of work together and just doing something sensible. Yeah. Now we're talking about Southgate trying to find a tactical solution, and that's something that if there is a weakness in his managerial reign, that is probably it. We haven't really seen him do that. So,
well, as Chris mentioned, if you want to see us talk more about England, then check out Team Talk.
I'm
earlier this week.
Refraining from saying loads more about England because that's obviously not what this episode's about.
And obviously with the way the World Cup goes, I'm sure we'll talk about England.
No one cares. They're going to go out in round 16.
Pat, let's move to a country that you have a lot to do with, the Netherlands.
Have a lot to do with them.
He's a diplomat.
Always out there.
Cody Gakpo, obviously, out of all the players going into this World Cup tournament, he was a guy that was wanted by Manchester United, Southampton as well were very close to possibly getting his signature. Arsenal were looking at him.
Leeds,
yep, indeed.
Well, I think he turned them down, didn't he, Leeds?
Yeah, I think so.
Brutal.
And this season he's been obviously fantastic. 9 goals, 12 assists in 14 appearances.
That's just in the league as well.
It's ridiculous. Do you think he's maybe the shining light? We've kind of mentioned that for Bellingham. Do you think he's the shining light for this Netherlands side, who actually, when you look at the squad, is really exciting?
It is actually really solid. I mean, previously you've kind of thought there's still a weakness at left wing back, but the rest of the team, in the midfield, you've got something like Koopmeiners and De Jong.
Disrespecting Daley Blind.
He's not going to be playing
one of the most aesthetically pleasing passes
or whatever
in the game.
But the defensive options are great. You've got Van Dijk, De Ligt, Botman, who doesn't even play, Timber. De Vrij, there are tons of guys.
I love the balance in your midfield as well with Koopmeiners and Frenkie de Jong.
Yeah, I think it's great
as well, doesn't he?
Well, Klaassen does play a bit, but to me, it's always, the attack is always kind of going to come down to Depay. Depay is the star; he's the best attacker that the Netherlands have. But Gakpo he's the kind of wild card. And actually, this is something the Netherlands tend to do at international tournaments. There tends to be one young player who breaks through. In 2014, it was Depay. Obviously under Van Gaal as well. The one before that, it was Gregory van der Wiel. At the one before that, it was Arjen Robben, who was 22 at the time. He was already at Chelsea, but that was where he really exploded and then got that move to Madrid. So I think Gakpo is quite an interesting candidate. I'm never quite sure how good I think he is. He's really doing... His underlying numbers are great this season. He's at like 0.9 XG and XA per 90. He's massively overperforming, and not just because he's like a great shooter, though he is overperforming with shots from range, but also his teammates are converting the chances he creates at an insane rate. I think he should have something like 7 assists, and he's got 12.
Which is still very impressive.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a big difference,
Yeah.
and of course, it's in the Netherlands.
He sustained that form in the Europa League as well, hasn't he? 5 goal contributions.
Yeah,
in 5
but
starts.
again, we've seen people do that in the
maybe,
Europa League. Again, we've seen people do that before in the Europa League, and I don't know how strong that group was. I mean, obviously we're going to win the tournament, but it's all his numbers are as good as they could be. He's in the top 1% of wingers for shots. He's getting like 3.5 shots a game. His XG numbers are lethal. He completes a couple of dribbles a match, and previously has completed more. He's creating like 5 chances a game this season. It's nuts. So, I mean, admittedly, that's with set pieces too. So, there's enough there to think this guy can play at a higher level, including his Europa League performance. I still look at him sometimes and think he's a little bit clunky. I don't think he's as fast as I want him to be.
Yeah.
I think his feet are a little bit...
Do you think
sloppy,
he plays off the left? Do you think his future is playing off the left? Because I remember there were people talking about eventually he could he's got the build essentially to play through the middle and a 9.
He's a big guy. I mean, I think that it'll be quite interesting to see what the plan is there, because again, I don't know.
Depends what club he goes to.
He could play in a front 2 here with Depay.
Yeah.
I think that'd be quite interesting. But equally, Depay, when he's a centre forward, is more of a facilitating centre forward. He likes to drop deep and create. Historically, he's been an amazing creator.
And also,
so I don't really worry
Simmons
about that.
has become like the second striker / number 10 at
weird
PSV, which means that
I'd love to see him get minutes at the World Cup.
Yeah,
man.
I'd certainly play him over Klaassen.
He's going. So, I mean, Gakpo on the left-hand side kind of makes sense, right? And he's made a good start to his international career there. Is it 3 goals in his first 9 appearances?
9,
That's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Yeah, so he's a very interesting prospect. I wouldn't be surprised if he had a quiet World Cup. I wouldn't be surprised if he was absolutely like world-ending. And to be honest, the great thing that when you think about the managers going to this tournament, there's maybe one I can think of off the top of my head, 1 or 2, who I rate as highly or more highly than I do Van Gaal. There are very few managers coaching at the international level who I really think are great. Van Gaal is. He just does sensible things. He's going to find a way to put his best talent out there and for them to play a system that makes sense. They're going to press as a team. They're going to work together. He just always does this without fail.
Not a lot of people as well at international level had the sort of I want to say like engine or consistency, but they performed really well in World Cup qualification and in the Nations League, and they had a really strong group in the Nations League. I think it was Belgium, Poland, Wales, and they made it all look relatively easy.
Battered Belgium.
Yeah.
And they haven't lost. They haven't lost since the knockouts of the Euros, I don't think.
No, they're insane.
And when you look at all the teams who've qualified for the World Cup, Brazil have the best record. Next best is the Netherlands. So it's really, really solid.
Can you count the Netherlands as a dark horse?
I think so, because would you
with previous tournaments?
Well, you think there are probably 5 teams that have shorter odds than them at least to win the tournament.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that Gakpo is an interesting one for everyone to watch. I don't know what I expect from him, and I still would expect Depay to be the difference maker, but this could make me look
because
silly.
Bergwijn's been in incredible form domestically speaking as well, and we've not even spoken about him.
There are loads of guys who are going to play minutes for the Netherlands, like Berghuis and Marlon might get some minutes as well.
My feeling is it's just going to be interchangeable, apart from Depay, whose record is like 1 in 2 at international level at this point, isn't it?
Actually, if you bake in assists as well, I think he's got. I looked at this the other day. I think he's got something like 72 goal involvements in 81 international caps. Memphis Depay. It's absolutely nuts.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about this World Cup, because obviously previously when World Cups happened, it's the summer transfer window that happens straight after it, or sometimes during it. Whereas this one, obviously being in December, and the January one opens up just a couple of days later on. I mean, Gakpo is probably going to be one of those guys if he has a good tournament.
And Depay too. Depay should be on
point.
the move. But Depay is 1 goal away from going second in the all-time top scorer list for the Netherlands. He's currently joint second with Huntelaar, and top is Van Persie. So I think he's like 8 goals off Van Persie. So he could really close that gap this tournament.
Interesting. Well,
there's a few of them this tournament, isn't there, that can overtake can become top dog for their country. I think it's like Harry Kane overtaking Rooney, Neymar overtaking Pele. Is it Thomas Muller overtaking Gerd?
The other Muller?
The other Muller?
I thought, is it not Klose?
Klose is number 1.
Yes.
Miroslav Klose.
Yeah,
I know
Klose
Klose has like killed it at World Cups, hasn't he?
Yeah, he was ridiculous. Yeah, World Cup we got like
God, that'd be so bleak, man. What an awful time. if Kane overtakes Rooney, what a disgrace that would be.
I wanted to move over to Japan, Chris.
Sure.
Obviously, because there are 2 players from Celtic who unfortunately did not go.
Bizarre.
But Mitoma has gone, and he's someone that looks very, very exciting.
Yeah, Brighton's Mitoma. I'm still very resentful of the fact that at least Rio Hatate hasn't gone, because I think he's probably been the best player in the Scottish Premiership this season. And looking at Japan's other midfield options, I still think there's a place for him there. But anyway, we'll move on to Mitoma, because he has played very well, albeit in a very limited amount of minutes, right? He too, like Rio Hatate, came from Kawasaki Frontale, except he went to Union St Gallen on loan after Brighton bought him for £3 million, and he fared really well there. I think it was 8 goal contributions in 11 starts, 21 appearances altogether. And this impact he's having now for Brighton off the bench, if you look back at his career, not surprising. Always been super effective coming on late in games, maybe owing to his skill set, his match intelligence. Like, we don't know that much about him as a player at current, but what we do know is he's extremely good at shifting it into the box or finding teammates in the box or like progressing it in the final third. But yeah, he's never started more than 13 games. He's in his 4th season now of senior football.
Yeah, and he's 25.
Yeah.
That is the one sad thing about him. You look at him and you're like, this guy's going to be 22. And he's a bit older than you like. So otherwise, I think there was a start.
Maybe it's that freshness in his legs.
Oh, he's just barely played a game. Yeah.
But only 314 minutes this season, 1 goal, 1 assist. But 3 key passes per 90, 3.4 passes into the penalty area. That's second in the Premier League to KDB. I mean, even if he doesn't start, this guy is going to be a threat coming off the bench,
as we've seen.
It would appear. And like Pat said earlier, I actually thought Spain were very unlucky at the Euros. I was impressed, like, looking at the whole picture, the bigger picture, how much progress they'd made under Enrique. I think they look pretty strong in most areas apart from strike, although Morata does get a lot of undue flack. But we don't really know what to expect from Germany. So if Japan catch them cold, they might be able to sneak into the knockout rounds, but it's going to be a huge ask for Japan, right?
But that's my little sneaky dark horse bet.
Japan.
I think Japan make it out of that group.
Make it out.
At the expense of one of those sides, and if I had to pick one, I'd probably say Germany. I mean, equally,
Germany
it could just
is
not
so
have.
hard to
I
call
understand
this
this
year,
is like a long shot bet. That's what I'm saying. But I wouldn't be surprised if Japan did it. And actually, at the last World Cup, do you remember they should have knocked out Belgium in the knockouts? and got a bit unlucky. I thought I'd love Japan.
I wasn't very impressed with them against Canada. I watched the extended highlights, about 11 to 14 minutes of that game. They lost 2-1 to Canada recently, and it made me go a little bit colder on them than I was prior. And obviously Hatate wasn't there as well, so the vision, the dream of getting there, like basically the guy who created Bathe and Ape, he's done like an alternate kit for them. I was going to get that kit with Hatate on the back, and now I'm just going to have to put £100 on the roulette table, mate. So,
I mean, the kit is very nice. You actually mentioned Canada. One of the guys that I was kind of thinking about who last season, it kind of felt like everyone was talking about him for getting a summer move, and it never happened, with Jonathan David.
Jonathan Christian David.
Yeah. Someone who obviously has joined Lille and was at one point. I don't know why.
Because he's got 3 first names.
Yeah, he's actually very good. But last season he was going at a goal a game. This season he's doing even better. He's already second for Canada's top goal scorers, like at just the age of 23. Like, it's ridiculous. And so this, I feel like he's a guy when we often talk about the striker market, we go, oh, it's actually it's not great. It's not great. And Jonathan David is a name that we always say, oh, should be looked at. And I remember there's times we said that Manchester United should buy him, Chelsea should buy him, so on and so forth. And I feel like, again, with this January window coming, that he could be someone, if he has a good World Cup with Canada, because the Canada side is quite exciting, young. There's obviously Alphonso Davies, and there's the other forward who escapes my name, Surreal. I can't remember.
Who, the old one? Are you talking about Kaetelare?
Yes, Kaetelare.
He's now in like Besiktas.
Yeah, but he's been fantastic.
And then there's Steven Eustáquio, who actually a load of people were talking about in response to Chris's tweet, but I was just like, man, I've done enough of this.
Fair enough. It's fair enough.
I've had enough of this.
It's 5 o'clock.
But this Canada side is very exciting. Again, I just thought Jonathan David is someone who if they have a good World Cup, could be looked at in January for teams that need a striker. I mean, again, Manchester United again need a striker up top, quite possibly.
And the options are really thin, actually. Like we've been talking about this recently, and we constantly are trying to do videos along this theme, right? Because it feels like everybody's looking for strikers. But when you're writing one of those scripts, who should United sign as a striker? You look around and you think a lot of these guys went. Haaland obviously went, Vlahovic obviously went, someone like Gabriel Jesus has gone. The fact that Chelsea had to turn to Aubameyang is quite strange in itself. And Bayern Munich obviously said we're going to get an unconventional centre forward. Yeah. So it feels like we're in this period where you kind of have to think a bit outside the box. Jonathan David was never a proper striker. He was a second striker. And Nkunku, people were talking about as a centre forward, but obviously was never that either. Yeah. Then we're talking about Osimhen, where you're trying to pay 9 figures to get him out of Napoli. So if one of these young strikers explodes at this World Cup, then they're really potentially putting themselves on the shopping list for some really big sides.
Time for someone to fill in the gap.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 9 goals in 13 league appearances, only third to
pretty good.
third to Neymar and Mbappe. So yeah, he's not doing too bad.
Lacazette's got 9.
Let's head over to
or stay in Ligue with Sulemana.
Yes, well, I was actually going to say let's head over to an African nation as well.
Sure.
Sulemana, Pat, how are we feeling about him?
Well, I covered him. I'm not going to talk about him too much because I also put him in the scout report thing, but I wanted to mention him because so many people had picked him. I think Ghana are a really fun team to watch at this tournament. They've obviously got this influx of talent with a bunch of guys kind of declaring their allegiance to them.
Tariq Lamptey.
Yeah, Tariq Lamptey. They've got Salisu.
Williams.
Iñaki Williams, yeah. So there are a few guys that, and obviously for a while they've been trying to bring in Nketiah as well.
Hudson-Odoi, they've wanted for a little while
Hudson-Odoi. If they got those, that would be really interesting. But there are the veterans there, of course. There's Partey, there's Ayew. Yeah. But there's this generation of young talent. So there's Isahaku, who's at Sporting CP. He's 18. They talk about him as the greatest talent they've had for a long, long time.
Wow.
They've got Mohamed Kudus, who is at Ajax and having a really good season so far. And they've got Kamaldeen Sulemana, who's at Rennes, who's a 20-year-old winger, not a nailed-on starter, got about 1,000 minutes last season, very limited play this season, but he's 20. And I look at the fact that he's coming out of Rennes, and that means quite a lot to me, because what I said in the script was, look at Rennes' track record, especially with wingers over the last few years. They've had Ismaila Sarr, Ousmane Dembele, Rafinha, Matisse Tel, who's gone off to Bayern Munich, and of course, deeper, they've had Camavinga.
Yeah.
So their production line is absolutely phenomenal. And when you look at his numbers, there are things in them which are very unusual for a player of his type. So last season, huge numbers of dribbles. 3rd in Europe for dribbles per 90, nearly 5, which was only behind Adama Traore and Alain Saint-Maximin. That's fine. That's great. But his success rate with his dribbles was really high, and his passing is really, really effective. So he's creating 2 chances a game and passing into the box a lot, but his pass accuracy is about 83%. And this is the kind of thing that when you look at it, you don't really think much of it, because we don't really think of 83% as particularly high. For a forward, it is. That's Phil Foden level passing as a forward. It's really hard to create chances, to pass into the box and maintain a pass accuracy like that. And if you do it, it's normally an indication that you could play at a higher level.
Yeah, that's why he reminds me a little bit of Ousmane Dembele, and also he's got the number 10 on his back, Sulemana. So, and he's actually playing like a number 10 an awful lot of the time as well. Like Pat said, good output last season in a limited amount of starts. I think it was 6 goals and assists and 11 starts, but appeared 20 times in the league throughout the whole competition. So clearly they rate him very highly. They're just doing quite a responsible job, it looks like, of blooding him into the team. Not as many minutes as I'd like this campaign, but Bourigeaud is playing really well on that right-hand side, and they've kind of fluttered between a 4-3-3 and a 4-4, pretty rigid 4-4-2, and they're doing really well. They're third in the league, so you can't really argue with the method. But when I watch him, just to go back to the Ousmane Dembele comparison, it's because he's very two-footed. So I literally had to Google last night what foot is Sulemana, because
what is
he does these. He's right-footed, but he does these raking crossfield balls with his left foot that are really like that's number 8/10 pass. But he's got the unpredictability where he can drop the shoulder back, race to the byline, cut it back again. He's just like chaos to mark. When we say wild card, I would probably go for this guy over Gakpo, who's a bit more polished, just because of that unpredictability. And I hope he gets minutes.
And he's in a group where it's kind of doable. Like you look at that group, and it's Uruguay, South Korea, and Portugal. Is that right? And I think. Yeah, I'm not that convinced about any of these. Uruguay could be great, Portugal could be great, but they could be disasters, because Portugal have never found the balance in attack, and Uruguay are kind of in a transitional moment from a time when they were basically
nailed on quarterfinalists.
Well, they were kind of 3 guys running them, right? It was like, we've got Godin at the back, and we've got Cavani and Suarez up front, and that's how we do it. And now they've got more talent spread through the side, but it's a different kind of shape they're using. South Korea, looks like they're going to be without Son. Maybe if they make it into the tournament, he might make it. Yeah, but they're still going to have to be careful with him. Of course. And I look at this and I think international football is cagey. It's really cagey. And so if you've got a guy who can create something out of nothing because he can beat 3 guys on the dribble, that could potentially be a difference maker. And Sulemana, I think, could do it. So it's kind of nice that they've got. It's good for them that they've got Partey where they do, because if he can just break play up and just spread and just ping passes out to Kudus and Sulemana. That's dangerous. You don't want to play
Carrera in for an awfully long shift.
That's a horrible long game to play.
Quick one. Which African nation do you think is going to go the furthest? Obviously, Morocco, Senegal now without Sadio Mane, Ghana, and I'm definitely missing one because I can't remember them. There's a 4th one, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, when you think of all the teams as a whole.
Tunisia.
I find it quite hard to...
Sounds like Ghana. Now, without Sadio Mane at Senegal, I kind of feel like it...
I'd probably go for Ghana. I'd probably go for Ghana.
Morocco have Ziyech just scored from halfway line yesterday, so if he's on top
another
form,
one that needs saving in January.
Yeah. Enough about Ziyech. Let's move on to Portugal that you mentioned. We're in Ghana's group. Rafael Leao is a very exciting player. Obviously, Serie A's player of the year last year. 11 goals, 10 assists last season. Already on track to look like he might beat it with 10 goals and assists this campaign.
Yeah.
How do we feel about him, Chris? He is someone for the past couple of years, more so last season, obviously after the fantastic campaign, was being spoken about as a £100 million player.
Yes.
And it does seem like that is actually going to be the transfer fee that is needed to get him out of AC Milan.
Yeah, especially with your man Todd.
Yeah, very true. And he looks like he's about to sign a new
contract
contract as well at Milan.
Yes. I mean, we'll see, because there's a lot of mitigating, or there's a lot of other circumstances playing a role in that, right? Like the amount of money he owes to Sporting.
For sure.
Whatever, it's boring. Let's move on to his playing stuff.
Because this Portugal squad has a few issues, doesn't it? Well, there's a lot of names being spoken about at the moment, and Leao's not really one of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent in there. People obviously talking about Ronaldo's last World Cup. Gonzalo Ramos has hit form at the right time. Bruno Fernandes is sort of... you don't know what sort of performance you're going to get from him at the moment, although it has been particularly good for Manchester United of late. Obviously, Bernardo Silva. But we've just talked about Sulemana, and we've labelled him a threat. That's exactly what Rafael Leao is. And he is marrying his sort of potential at the moment with a ruthless level of output. Yeah, 21 goal involvements last season, like you said, but already 10 goals and assists in 12 starts this campaign. So that puts him on track to beat last season's output. Pretty versatile, like a real substantial shooting threat. Like what he does is get shots off, right? 3.6 a game, which is pretty crazy for a winger. They're numbers that a centre forward would be content with, right? I mean, in terms of little nuances in his game this season, we see that he's dribbling a little bit less, maybe because people are keying onto him, maybe they're doubling up on him because they're very aware of his threat now. But we don't really mind as long as he's getting it amongst the goals and assists, right? And I'm sure Santos, the head of Portugal, will be thinking the same. Like, qualification wasn't a walk in the park for them. They obviously had to overcome North Macedonia across 2 legs, and the football they play. I feel like Portugal fans have a similar relationship with their national team that England do at the moment. Like, they think there's a discrepancy between the talent they have at their disposal and the product they're putting out on the pitch.
They didn't take Sanchez, obviously. He hasn't played that much at PSG, and he's someone at the Euros, when he was coming on, was making a big impact.
Yeah. So I do think, like, he could be, I don't know, if we're talking about players who come good in their potential and that facilitates big moves, maybe not in January, but in the summer. Yeah, I think Chelsea feel better about paying 120 mil for him if he gets 4 goals at a World Cup for sure. But another one of those players that maybe we kind of take him for granted a little bit now, but your everyday fan might not know too much about. But yeah, definitely a good shout.
He's exciting. I think possibly one of the young players of the tournament, still only 23 years old. Let's move over to Argentina, who personally, if England aren't going to win the World Cup, I would quite like Argentina too. The story of Messi, perfect. It sounds brilliant. But Enzo Fernandez, who, when I was doing a bit of research, was described as the next Xavi who can tackle, which really shocked me. Apparently, he's someone that likes to obviously pass the ball, simple passes, quick 1-2, stuff like that. But yeah, also defensive mind.
He's at Benfica. He's at like 3 tackles and interceptions per 90.
But Benfica do have 98% of the ball.
Yeah, but it's still like whatever. Like, I mean, he's an okay defender, but that's not what he is.
Okay, but how do you feel like he's going to fit? Is he going to start for Argentina?
I don't know. I mean, he hasn't played a lot for the international team, and actually the midfield for the first time in a long time is pretty stacked. You've obviously got Paredes, you've got De Paul, you've got Guido Rodriguez, who's been playing well at Betis and has been linked with Arsenal and United in the last year. You've got a couple of other guys in there I'm probably forgetting.
Alvarez.
Yeah, sure. Well, okay. But he's going to play further forward, though,
yeah,
right?
Of course.
But Fernandez is a very interesting passing prospect. Defensively, he's fine. Like, he's not a problem, certainly, but his passing is crazy. And again, you don't know how much this is changed by the fact that he's playing for such a dominant side in a weak division. But he's in the top 10% for progressive passes, for passes into the final third, for expected assists, for touches in the final third. He just gets forward a lot, and he's a really interesting distributor for them. Obviously, you're not sure how much of that you want him to do in Argentina. Like, that's kind of the thing. Again, you have to pick what you do. You say, do we let Messi play without portfolio? You know, he drops wherever he wants, and we rely on the other forwards to kind of carry the water for him, which in the case of guys like Alvarez and Martinez, they can actually do. By the way, it's going to be a horrible tournament. We're hearing people say Martinez all the time. Nothing makes you sound thicker than saying that.
How's it pronounced?
Martinez. It's always been Martinez. When people say Martinez, I don't know where that came from. But anyway, do you want Messi to play that way, or do you say, okay, we're actually going to tell Messi to stay much further up the pitch and rely on De Paul and Fernandez to get the ball up there to him? I don't really know what the plan will be in that regard. I imagine it will probably be let Messi do what he wants, which is completely fair enough. But I would like to see some minutes from Fernandez, and I do think this is the first time in a long time that we've seen Argentina have more going on behind the front line. Because in previous tournaments, again, kind of similar to Uruguay, it was Mascherano with it. We don't know what the situation is, but Mascherano can deal with it, right? And most of the time he could. He was unbelievable in the 2014 World Cup. Unbelievable. Pretty much single-handedly put out the Netherlands by himself by just like tracking Robin in that entire game. But I would like to see something of him. McAllister. Alexis McAllister was the name.
Do you think it's essentially Paredes or him then in that midfield?
No. I think they're completely different kinds of players.
Okay.
Paredes can play as a 6.
Yeah.
And Fernandez, I guess you could play him as a 6, but I don't think he would play that way. I think that would be Rodriguez or Paredes. So I think that he's much more likely, if he does play, to play further forward or maybe to come on later in games. But maybe there is a different plan for him. Maybe they're happy for him to play that way. As international level tends to be one of those things where, because you have to make do with the talent you have, you're playing as a 6, kind of like Declan Rice for England. So we shall see. But Argentina, man, I'm bullish on Argentina.
And he's only 21. He's still somewhere off his final form. And he just looks like one of those midfielders at the moment that's excelling at whatever role he is given. I think he's almost averaging 100 passes a game for Benfica at the moment. So he clearly is building play from deep, even if his starting position... his starting position from deep, even if he doesn't end up further up the pitch. I was watching highlights of him last night, this morning. He's like Thiago Alcantara with a bit of bite, is probably how I describe him at this point. You know, dispossessing people by dragging the ball back off them, little Cruyff turns to dispossess them. He's got that like cuteness, that match intelligence that you love to see, that a wonderful array of passing. But I went back to Argentina's last game of note against Italy, because they have been stat padding in the build up to the World Cup, by the way. They've been thrashing like the United Arab Emirates and Jamaica and Honduras, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not sure I can take any of these lineups seriously. And against Italy for the Finalissima, was it? They started with Rodriguez and De Paul in a 4-2-3-1, and Messi was given that license to roam around at 10. So it feels, I mean, Lo Celso is injured, isn't he?
Yes.
And he started on the left in that game. And you imagine he started on the left, because when Messi roams, it gives them a bit more solidity. They can be a bit more compact. So it feels like Scaloni probably will go with that system. But Scaloni, earned the right to do whatever he likes. Like they've been excellent, and they've achieved that excellence in a really short space of time, like a year, 2 years, right? So I am looking forward to seeing him, but I think he might be one of those guys that they win the first 2 games, you see him in the third game, and he probably bosses it. And then you maybe see him, a few minutes in the knockout stages, but one to watch on a European front for sure, because he's not long won a title with River Plate, right? He's not been in Europe all that long.
One player I also want to touch upon in that Argentina squad, Julian Alvarez, who it's nuts that Man City went and bought the best striker in Europe, and then was like, you know what, we'll go and buy the best striker in South America as well, in Alvarez, who has been ridiculous and obviously has to. If it wasn't for Haaland, this guy would just be killing it, because he's already killing it when he comes off, and whether that be minutes off the bench or starts in kind of sub games Haaland's either injured for, whatever it might be, to give him a rest. And he's someone who I think, whether he starts, I'm not too sure, but someone who, in terms of players to watch, because of the fact that he's kind of been the guy behind Haaland, and Haaland's taken all the headlines, someone that could also be like, once we watch Argentina play and he can possibly do well, everyone goes, oh yeah, he's just the sub striker for
but like Fernandes just got time on his side, right? This tournament almost a bonus for them.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very good point.
Being 21 or whatever.
That's a very good point. I did write a couple of names though that I want to get your quick opinions on, guys. It's not on the doc. I've written it on my own one. Apologies. Kaetelare at Belgium, because his season at AC Milan's been kind of 50-50 so far. He's maybe not settled as quickly as some would have hoped. And rather than, say, play with Kevin De Bruyne at Belgium, Martinez is playing him basically either De Bruyne or him. Do we think he'll feature? Do we think he'll have a good tournament if he does? Patrick?
I think he will feature off the bench.
Okay.
A revealing thing in the way that Belgium announced their squad was that they said, here are defenders, here are midfielders, and the midfielders included players like Thomas Meunier. So they're kind of saying, we're going to play 3 at the back here, which we kind of knew anyway. But to me, that leaves limited options for him to play in the attacking line. They're going to have to find a way to get De Bruyne in. They probably will still play Eden Hazard. If they don't play Eden Hazard, they're likely to play Trossard or Torgan Hazard, even though he hasn't played much at Dortmund this season. So it feels like Kaetelare is probably he again is somebody who's going to be part of the next generation of this Belgian side. But I don't know. I have zero faith in Belgium. Just because I think Martinez is such a bad
international. I've got Belgium in a sweepstake, and I'm not happy with it.
Charles has got going for him, I guess, is that he might be brought on to defend a lead as well as to try and get a goal back because he is always pressed incessantly and pretty intelligently as well. He's pretty good at that, dab hand at that. And he's a physical presence as well. So he can come on in a couple of different situations, right? Depending on game state.
Another one that I should have probably mentioned along with Bellingham and Pedri and co. Jamal Musiala, Chris. He's someone for this Germany side that looks so exciting.
Yeah, again, like not a player that's at the forefront of my mind as a breakout star because of how comfortable he looks in the first team. And McCubb's raised an interesting point on Team Talk that Thomas Muller sort of playing in the same area that he likes to play in for the national side. Hansi Flick, I think, has been sticking with Muller for the most part. So maybe he's a 1 every 2 games sort of guy. Musiala in this tournament, which would be a shame because obviously we want to see as much of him as possible. But like, I think that's probably what Chelsea fans thought they were sort of getting with Havertz. You know, some guy that could move through the positions and just excel in every single sense. Like a guy who at moments looks like a 10, then he looks like a striker, then he looks like a playmaker. Yeah, I don't... A lot of hyperbole around him already. I don't really know what more I can say. I've also made a little short list I wanted to fire at you guys, but I feel like you've not finished yours yet.
Let's see. Have you featured Milinkovic-Savic and Kim Min-jae? Those are the other 2 I wanted to say. Milinkovic-Savic is someone who, again, we kind of spoke about earlier about players who possibly could get moved in January. This is the guy who continues to obviously dominate midfield and just do really, really well. And I'm actually looking really forward to his nation play. And then as for Kim, I mean, we look at what Koulibaly's doing at Chelsea and we just think, what's happened here then? And there's a supposed release clause of 50 million quid. So he could be someone.
So his replacement at Napoli is now going to be his replacement at Chelsea?
Yeah, quite possibly.
Right.
No, I don't think it'll come to us, but if there's someone looking for a centre-back, he looks very exciting over at Napoli, doesn't he?
Yeah, but it just doesn't feel like it matters, you know?
Yeah.
Because he's playing for South Korea, because South Korea are likely to have a bit of a difficult time, it's hard to see him getting that much attention.
Yeah.
And look, are we going to say to people, you know what you should really do at this?
Go watch this centre back.
Go and watch a South Korean centre back in one of the weirdest groups at the tournament.
It's a very good point, well made. Very good point, well made. I don't know if you've got any others, Hamel.
I did. I wanted to flag. We've talked about Xavi Simons a little bit, so don't really need to spend much more time on him. Was surprised to see that he was at 11 goal contributions in 14 starts. Like he's obviously hit a certain degree of top degree of consistency. But Goran Kuol. Yes. I was interested in him because Celtic were heavily linked with him before he signed for Newcastle. He's obviously joined up with Eddie Howe's men in January. But super interesting story. Like, was born to Egypt to parents of South Sudanese descent. That's where they came from. I think they had to emigrate because of conflict. His younger brother also plays professional football, I think, for Stuttgart as well. Or no, he is the younger brother of. A player at Stuttgart. But he was taken, I think he was a bit of a wild card for Australia as well, maybe caught Socceroos fans by surprise that he was included because it wasn't long ago he was making his A-League debut for the Central Coast Mariners. I think that was in like September of maybe last year.
Yeah, he's really young.
Yeah, but I think he's now officially the youngest player to be selected for Australia at a World Cup. He's got 2 goals in 4 starts this season in the league. Like, he could be... I don't know if people are overhyping him because I don't watch him at all, but it looks like he could be the next big thing coming out of Australia. Like, there's an awful lot of people are saying that, and we might see that not come to fruition at this World Cup. We might see shades of that. It'd be nice to actually see him play. Yeah,
and obviously moving to Newcastle, they've got an exciting side happening over there. Let's move over to quick-fire questions. From giving players their praise to calling them overrated, this one has come in. Who is the most overrated player going to the World Cup? Now, some of the popular shouts in the replies: Harry Kane, for apparently poor performances in the Euro final, World Cup semis and the Champions League final. Gavi, Havertz, Mount, and Richarlison.
It's a wild selection.
Those are some
these were popular players.
So that's like football Twitter.
Mount was probably the most popular shout. I really don't get.
I'm so bored of people continuously. Like, what I will say is Mount 100% has not had the performances for England that he's had for Chelsea. at all.
Neither is Foden.
Exactly. And so I can understand maybe people looking at that point of view, especially when he is getting in over maybe like a Jack Grealish or a Phil Foden or whatever it might be.
Or
I can understand, or James Maddison indeed. So I can understand that bit, but to call this guy overrated, it's just boring now. Like it legitimately is just.
It's become one of those
rubbish.
things where people don't need like sound rationale to do it. It's like
there are people in the Chelsea.
They're saying it because they heard other people say it. At this
100%.
Yeah.
But that's all that it ever is. That's all it ever is. It's just there are players who you cannot criticise because everybody says no. Like the popular. Like I remember for ages when we ever said anything that was like not hugely positive about John McGinn. Everyone's reaction was, nah, come on, he's top class player. Now everyone's decided he's terrible.
Douglas Luiz?
When he's totally fine.
I did get in a pub after about 9 Guinness announced that John McGinn was world class once. So I'm going to have to get that
He's
off
had
my
great
chest.
games. He's had great games.
Douglas Luiz, he's another
Douglas
example
Luiz.
of it. And I just think this happens all the time. And in this situation, you know, Mount is going the Maguire way at the moment, where everyone's just decided he shits. Everyone tells each other he constantly.
Yeah,
when objectively,
self-fulfilling prophecy. He's not. Yeah, exactly. I mean, just
he's much less than Maguire, and Maguire isn't.
Yeah, true that. I mean, looking at the list, Richarlison, I think he's
quite
got
harsh,
7
man.
goals for Brazil in 6 goals in 7 starts, or the other way around. I can't remember now. Looking at his Wikipedia page last night, the only person that doesn't give me any joy to watch on this shortlist, if you're going to press me for an answer, Jalab, is probably Kai Havertz.
Yeah.
Like, I've never
sad,
watched
man.
him and thought, I love this game.
There's one game I remember he played against Crystal Palace where I was like, wow, he's finally here. Like I remember he flicked the ball over defender, had the shot. It was like a good effort. It was saved in the end. And like there was a game against England.
What a moment that must have been.
No, it was really nice
to
man.
see him take a
no,
shot
it
that
was
got
really
saved.
Nice. No, because it's the
you
flick,
must have been like,
it
wow,
was the
what a
flick
day.
of the defender. Like he's got him. It just goes. It was brilliant. Then obviously against England recently, he obviously was
Scored a banger.
pretty decent.
Yeah.
Scored a banger. I just don't know.
But that's why he's frustrating, because all the talent in the world is there.
Just sometimes you watch him though, it just feels like he's lazy. But we'll see. I mean, I feel like those are all quite harsh. Let us know if you've got any other overrated players going to the World Cup in the comments below. This one comes from Jack. Do you have any other better shouts for top goal scorer than Lautaro Martinez? Did I say it right?
Lautaro Martinez.
Martinez.
I'll probably continue to say Martinez as well. Don't worry. We'll keep winding down straight up about
Martinez is
it.
correct.
Lautaro Martinez.
Yeah. And what was
what you
How do
said.
people say it wrong?
Martinez.
You said I'm going to carry on
Martinez.
saying
It's
Martinez.
Yeah. Inez,
No.
not Inez.
People in this country started saying Martinez at some point in like the last 10 years. I cannot for the life of me understand why.
Martinez.
They never did before. When Roberto Martinez was playing, nobody called him Roberto Martinez, but he became a manager and people said Martinez. It's so bizarre.
Interesting.
It's so bizarre.
Anyway, we got a list here: Kane, Messi, Depay, Nunez, and Mbappe. It's a bit of an outside shout, to be honest, Martinez.
Yeah, a better shout. Using him as the yardstick
He's a
is
very popular shout.
Is a little
Really?
bit strange.
Yeah, because Messi has been a phenomenal creator and he's going to be sitting behind him.
Good point, well made. Yeah, he's not too bad, that Lionel Messi, is he?
There's a lot of creativity in that side.
Harry Kane, I still think is a good shout, man. Like
Oh,
as much as like the group games, if we're being deadly honest, like England should be dominating those teams. Like I agree, USA is a team to worry about. But
you can
seriously,
dominate teams without scoring lots of goals.
I mean, that's what England do, to be honest.
Exactly.
For a while.
He's taken like half a shot a game over his last 14 matches for England.
He was the last Golden Boot winner at the 2018 tournament. The Panama game did help. There was that goal as well that comes off the back of his boot and chips the keeper.
Looking at that list, Messi aside, who can do whatever, whenever, right? I wouldn't be surprised if Nunez got 4 goals.
Yeah.
Just because he's a big, unpredictable house and I love him.
You think 4 goals is what's going to...
I just think at the end, in the midst...
That's pretty bleak.
In the midst of a season, I don't know, 5 goals normally wins it, right?
Six might be a little bit more. A little bit more.
6 is nailed on. 5, you might be sharing it with someone.
Yeah.
4, like, I think Torres might have won it on a 4 and an assist.
But that was an incredibly low scoring one.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Nunez is just going to be like whatever approach, whatever nationality, he's going to just be such a handful. And is like, out of all of them, like Mbappe can sometimes play wide, Depay can sometimes be the creator, Messi can often be the creator as well, Kane loves to drop deep.
Yeah.
He's a guy that's just like, I want 6 shots inside the box and not per night, and then I'll walk off the pitch happy. So
fair. I'm going to go with Benzema or Giroud.
Giroud.
Benzema's injured.
Giroud was the one I was thinking of.
That was it. He's the one. Yes,
might be
he's
replacing
the one
Henry as top goal scorer. I don't think it is the
one.
Mullers. I think I might have just been chatting shit there.
It is Giroud.
Right,
but, yeah, why not? Bit of fun in it. Okay, this one from Cal97. Ignoring who's supporting and the draw, what's your dream final? Dream final. Portugal versus Argentina. Argentina win 4-0. Ronaldo crying. Messi lifting it. Perfect.
Ronaldo crying. I was going to say...
Do an interview now.
I'm bored of the whole Ronaldo sideshow. I actually want it to be Brazil-Argentina.
Oh. It's the obvious answer, isn't it?
That is good fun.
And then I wouldn't mind who wins it, because Neymar wins it and he elevates his status as like one of the best of his generation to truly world class, which is where I think he deserves to be. If he was more likable, he probably would be.
Martinelli, World Cup winner.
But if Messi wins, well deserved.
Yeah, 100%. Anything for you?
I mean, Brazil-Argentina from the point of view of good football, I think would be good. But other than that, I'd probably say.
Oh, we can support them.
I think I'll say either Japan, Mexico.
Battle of the kits. Is that like who's got the drippiest kit?
Some combination of Ghana, Japan, and Mexico.
Nice.
I'd love to see an African finalist.
Same, man.
I love Mexico. They were always great in the 90s, and they had some sick players like Cuauhtemoc Blanco. And Japan, I don't know, just be great.
No, I agree. I like it.
Wavy winner.
Finally, personal question, MFC4. What is a song that improves your mood no matter what? Mine is Flowers. I'll bring you flowers.
Ace of Base.
I love them, man. That's been one of my all-time favourite songs ever, man.
That's a great shout.
That song. It's not like a traditional one, but when I do listen to it, it does just make me happy.
I might have to get my Spotify out while you answer.
I feel like you've got you'll have a collection.
I mean, look.
Bit of Beyonce.
I've said this a million times, but Pure Shores always gets me absolutely pumped.
How's that go?
I'm moving, I'm coming, can you hear?
Oh, what a banger.
It's a huge banger. But I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because there are songs that get you hyped, but they're not exactly like Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush. One of the greatest songs ever written.
I was going to say, The Essence by Giggs is another one of my favourites.
All right.
It's great.
The Celtic Symphony. There's a lot.
Yours is like Kasabian.
Like they reminisce over you.
I love Kasabian.
Yeah. Pete Rock and CL Smooth.
Unashamedly so.
I don't know those songs.
That's a huge banger. Look that up after this. They reminisce over you. Pete Rock and CL Smooth. Look that up after this. That is.
I probably have heard it. I just need. I need to know where it goes.
It's a classic.
I'm a bit of a. I know that a lot of people on Football Daily like guitar-based music, like you and Joe. You know.
I don't mind it. No, I don't mind.
But I like a lot of, apart from Kasabian, a lot of 70s based stuff. Guitar. And I like the one song that always puts me in a good mood as well. Take It Easy by the Eagles.
Take it easy.
Yeah,
I'm not a big Eagles guy.
I just think, you know what, things are probably going to be all right, mate.
Faith by George Michael, my mum's favourite artist.
That's a great shout. Any Stevie Wonder will do it as well. Any Jackson 5 will do it.
Nice.
And there are probably some obvious things I'm missing in there. Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. Huge banger.
I was thinking then, dreams do come true.
Yeah, that one. That's the one I meant, by Gabrielle. Is that Gabrielle?
Sure, I don't know. But then there are a few songs where obviously it's like 4 chords where, like, what's the 1,000... Obviously,
1,000 miles.
Not, it's
Vanessa
not
Carlton.
But like, in terms of improving your
that is
mood,
exactly. Is that what you put on? Is that what's
mate.
giving you the hinge success right now? You just put on you put on 1,000 miles by Vanessa Carlton,
yeah, sure.
and everyone actually people start pouring in from all over Chelsea.
Creedence Clearwater Revival was the one I was thinking of. And
no idea.
I seen a moon rising.
Yeah,
I'm always that.
That's a great song.
like road trip songs.
Yeah, nice.
That's what puts me in a good mood.
Nice.
Frankie Valli.
Well, we're gonna have to end it there. Let us know what song puts you in a good mood in the comments below. Also, let us know as well what players that we haven't covered also we need to be watching at this year's World Cup. Kicks off today, lad. The day this video goes live.
Yeah. Does it?
What are we doing?
I take kicks off tomorrow
for the World Cup. I mean, England play Iran on the Monday.
Yeah.
For sure. What are we doing for the World Cup, Chris?
Today I'll be watching Akram Afif go off against Ecuador. What are we doing for the World Cup? We are doing live shows every day, baby, on Football Daily and Euro Football Daily, starting from Monday. And yeah, it's just a variety of shows, a variety of times. So just stay tuned.
Amazing. Tune in if you've not already. Watched the Team Talk where we discuss all about England with James Alcott and Rory Jennings. It's going to be a hell of a month, guys.
And if you don't get your visa, you'll be here.
God, well, yeah, we'll see. Touch wood. Yeah, I forgot all about that, and now that's made me stressed. I'm gonna play some. I'm gonna play some flowers on the way home. If you're not already subscribed to Football Daily, like the video, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.